that we're working on. And statistics back this up when it comes to things like people wanting to get into marriage. And we talked about that this is a mistaken notion, that Islam gives us a different perspective on relationships and the value of them and the value of love and what that can do for us. Now, we said that in the course of the discussion, we want to be able to address 3 topics. One of them is that why should we be searching for the love of Allah? Like, meaning why is it valuable for us to do that? Number 2 is how can we achieve this love of Allah? And number 3 is what effect does it have if we were to be able to achieve it? So tonight I want to focus on this topic of why should we be searching for the love of Allah, and I want to give 2 reasons, inshallah. One reason is that this is something which is emphasized by our role models and our guides. They particularly emphasize the importance of aspiring towards the love of Allah. And I gave you some stories yesterday, but I wanted to continue to give a few examples, both from the words and the lives of the Ahlul Bayt and from their students, meaning some of the best of the scholars. Let's go back to Dua Kumail. Last night I quoted for you one line from Dua Kumail. This is the dua that we read so often, but how often do we have a chance to really ponder upon the profundity of each one of its statements? Imam Ali Islam, in that dua, he teaches us to say the following. He says that, "O Allah, if you were to place me in the hellfire and deprive me of your special connection with me, and you were to avert your gaze from me, then the way I would respond to that is, وَلَا أَبْكِيَنَّ عَلَيْكَ بُكَاءَ الْفَاقِدِينَ." I would most definitely, wala abkiyanna means most definitely, for sure, most definitely, for sure, I would cry and weep upon you the weeping of those who have lost somebody that's dear to them. Now, that type of connection with Allah is a very deep connection, right? It's something which shows us that for Imam Ali alayhi salam, Allah and the love that he has towards him is very precious. وَلَا أُنَادِيَنَّكَ, and I would call out to you, because when you love someone, then you want to call out to them. Sometimes we wonder, how can we encourage ourselves, our brothers and sisters, our children to pray, right? Why is it sometimes we feel reluctant to offer our prayers? And it's actually very simple, that if we're able to instill that love of Allah in our hearts and in their hearts, then when we have love towards someone or something, then you automatically wish to call out to that thing and you want to remember it. You want to frequent the remembrance of that entity on your lips. So Imam Ali said, وَلَا أُنَادِيَنَّكَ, even in that state of the hellfire, I would cry out to you, and I would cry out, أَيْنَ كُنْتَ, where are you? Ya wali al-mu'min, O the guardian of the believers. So this is Imam Ali alayhi salam. And then a little bit later on, he makes a dua. He says that, "Oh Allah," now he's this whole dua was there to state some requests. So he says, "Wahfadni bi rahmatik." You're familiar with these words. "Oh Allah, protect me with your mercy. Waj'al lisani bi dhikrika lahija." Oh Allah, make my tongue frequently, in remembrance of you. Wa qalbi bi hubbika mutayyama. Okay, now this line is one of those things where you read the translation up on the slide and then you just kind of go on, right? But if you just ponder upon it, I think you could say that maybe the effect of pondering on this one line could be the equivalent of reading one whole Dua Kumail without paying attention, deep attention to the meaning. What does it mean? What does this mean? That وَقَلْبِي بِحُبِّكَ مُتَيَّمًا. It means that, oh Allah, number one, I want my heart to be filled with your love, okay? But not just any type of love. It's a love which is mutayyam. Mutayyam in the Arabic language is a synonym for the word ishq. Actually, in the dictionaries they say it's something which is higher than ishq. When somebody can have an ordinary love for something, that's hub. But when you have a hub which is mutayyam, it's a type, according to the dictionary meaning of that word, it's a type of love which takes somebody beyond the rational level into something where other people might even say that they have lost their sanity. Now, who's asking for this type of love? Is it some like whirling dervish who has lost his path and is somewhere else? These are the words of Mawla Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. That, oh Allah, that's the type of love I want to have for you. That maybe other people would even think that in some ways I've lost it. Of course, we know that in this type of language, it's the language of love, right? So you can take some exaggerations. Imam alayhi salam would never be seen in that way that other people would accuse him of losing anything, right? He was the perfect man. But it goes to show how important this value is, that Imam alayhi salam is talking about that type of intensity for the love of Allah. Salama, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. You've heard this hadith before. She says that there was one night where I saw that Rasulullah was absent from the room. And I got frightened. I wanted to find out what happened to him. So I went searching for him in the home and I found him standing in a corner. And I went to see what he was saying, and he was making this dua, Allahumma la tanza' minni saliha ma a'taytani abada. Allah, whatever good that you've given me, don't rip it away from me. The Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam were given so much, but they knew that there's no guarantee that whatever they have would indefinitely continue. Sometimes like their du'as were there for the continuity of the enormous blessing of Allah upon them. Oh Allah, never take this away from me, that which you've given me. Oh Allah, do not let my enemies gloat over me. Oh Allah, any evil that you have rescued me from, oh Allah, never return me back to that state of evil. And finally he says this dua, and this is like really it's such a powerful statement. وَلَا تَكِلْنِي إِلَى نَفْسِي طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ أَبَدًا. Oh Allah, don't leave me alone even for a single moment. Don't leave me to myself. Don't abandon me. Right? So these are the words of somebody who has a deep and intense love for Allah. And when she hears him saying this, then she withdraws herself and she begins to cry. This is Salma, the wife of the Prophet. She begins to cry. And the Prophet hears her and he comes to her and he says that, what is it that's making you cry like this, Salma? And she says that, Ya Rasulullah, like you in your status and you're making these type of du'as, you're the Prophet of Allah. And then he says something really interesting. He says that, oh Salma, what is there to protect me from what happened to Yunus? Yunus was a prophet of Allah. Yunus was a ma'soom. Yunus was somebody who God delivered from a very difficult predicament, and he gave him his people back again. It's an amazing story of success. But you know what happened in the story of Yunus? That for one moment Allah withdrew some of his mercy from Nabi Yunus alayhi salam. And so for that one moment, Nabi Yunus alayhi salam found himself in the bottom of the ocean, in the darkness of the belly of a whale, and here he is crying out to Allah, La ilaha illa ant, subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. And so the Prophet is saying that even that amount of disconnect or separation from Allah, I'm not willing to even bear that much. Right? This is something which is important to him. So we see this in the words in the life of the Prophet. There's the best students of the prophets and the imams. I'll give you one example of one of my teachers had shared this with us many, many years ago, and it really stuck with me. I was just talking to one of the brothers actually over iftar, and we were talking about Ramadan lectures, and we're saying that we hear a lot. We hear a lot of content throughout the year, Ramadan, Muharram, Thursday nights, etc., etc. Right? How much really sticks with us? Right? Is it really there's so much that's said? And I know for myself, I try to give bite-sized content, but I know that many things that we say, it's not going to, even I myself, I'm thinking, what did I say yesterday, right? So of course. But one of the things that does stick with us is the stories, and particularly poignant scenes from those stories. That's why in these type of lectures, right, I could just give the content like it was a class, but I'm pausing and giving these stories because I know that some of these stories will be there with us and we can refer to them. They help us. So this story, one of my teachers said once of this one great scholar named Sayyid Shifti. Sayyid Shifti lived about maybe 150 years ago. And he was a great scholar. He was known for many accomplishments. He did great service to the community of Muslims and Shia Muslims. One of the qualities of Sayyid Shifti is that he was enamored with Allah. He had that ishq and that deep passion for Allah. And it was seen in his worship of Allah. So one of the stories that's told about him is that there was one of his neighbors who, at night, he says that I came out late in the night and early in the morning, well before the Fajr time, and I was making my way to the bathhouse. Back then, they didn't have baths in people's homes. They had to go to the public bathhouse. So he says, way in advance of Fajr, I made my way to the bathhouse, and I happened to pass by the home of Sayyid Shifti. And from his home, I heard him wailing. And I went nearby and I went to hear what he was saying. And he kept on repeating the same thing again and again. And then he says that I did my things, right? I came back. It was 2 hours later. I came back, right? Getting ready now for the Fajr prayer. And I heard him in the same state. He's still wailing. He's still crying. He's still passionately, expressing himself. And he's saying the same thing. What was he saying? Right? This line is the thing which really gets me. He says, he was repeating this again and again. He says that, أَمِثْلُكَ أَيُخَيِّبُنِي مِثْلُكَ مِثْلِي أَيُخَيِّبُنِي مِثْلُكَ مِثْلِي. What that means is that, will someone like you disappoint someone like me? Okay, now, it's three parts to that sentence, right? Someone like you disappoints someone like me. But those three words are just power, right? Because here, when you talk about Allah and all of His mercy and all of His generosity, right? We love Him for a reason, right? Because we've tasted His mercy, we've tasted His generosity. We're tasting it right now, right? We're indebted beyond even expression to whatever He gives us. Someone like that, would you disappoint? And what all we've seen from Him is lutf, is grace. Would you disappoint someone like me? Right? So this is the statement he would repeat again and again. Imagine that it could occupy him for hours at end. Right? I'm not saying this is what we should do. I'm saying it's just showing the type of love that the great ones had for Allah Ta'ala. Please say salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this is one reason why it's important, because it's emphasized in their words and in what their actions, in what they would do themselves and what their great students have shown us, whether it be Sayyid Shifti or the other great scholars of spirituality and what they were able to achieve. It was all powered through the love of Allah. The second reason is a logical reason, which is very important. The reason why we should develop love of Allah is because everything other than Allah and those who are known as Wajhullah, that's a separate topic, all of that is what the Quran refers to as fan or fani. كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا fan وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا fan. Everything on the face of this earth is fani, meaning that it is transient, and it's in a state of being there and moving along, and eventually coming out of our grasp. Either it is going to leave us, or we are going to leave it. And this is life, right? One of the things that you realize about life the more you live it is that the nature of life is that it slips out of your grasp. Every time you want to capture it, it's like that slippery fish that just you cannot get. It always is going to jump out. It's always going to leave you. I don't know if you've ever done this. You look at pictures of the past and you see, for example, the time that you graduated from, I don't know, kindergarten, right? And then elementary school, and then middle school, and then high school. And you're like, yeah, I remember that, right? I remember that day that I walked and I was given that gown and that whatever tassels, right? University, right? The day that, big days in your life, those milestones, the day that maybe you get married, the day that maybe you have your first child, right? Some of you are like, wait, that's way beyond me. Okay, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You have your days. And you look back and you can get lost in those memories, and it's like, wait a minute, how many years have passed since those times? Right? We're rushing along. And sometimes the things that we attach our heart to are, if you look back, they're distant memories of the past, and we're like, how much time did I waste in the pursuit of something that now seems like a distant memory? Imagine that somebody lives their whole life chasing after those things which were never meant to be there for them the whole time, right? The nature of those things was that they were going to escape from them. What do they do at the end? Right? They look back and they're like, Ya hasrata ala ma farrattu fi janbillah. Woe be to me, as the Quran says, over how I've wasted this life. I've fallen short of what I was able to achieve. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he tells us that if you want to live your life properly, one of the things you need to do, I'm just paraphrasing his hadith, is that imagine if you were in a dream, and in your dream you got something like really good, right? I don't know if you ever had a dream where you become like whatever, right? Like super rich, you have this amazing car, you like have all these like servants who are like, willing to respond to every call that you might make. You have like tons of money, you can fly across, whatever it is, right? And your wildest dream, it's there in your dream and you're actually living it. And then you wake up and then it's like, oh yeah, well, that was a dream, right? You can talk about it a bit, you can kind of like, sort of share that experience, but it's like, yeah, that's a dream, right? It's not really like something that I'm gonna like get too like worked up about, right? Usually within a day or two or a week, those dreams just kind of, we forget them. Imam Sadiq says, live your life, and when it comes to like this world and what comes your way and what leaves you in that state, as if you were in a dream and something was given to you. Or if you were traveling to a place for a short amount of time and then you're going to leave, right? How often do you get attached to the furniture of your hotel room? I mean, who cares, right? Like, I'm just here for as long as it serves my need, I'm out, right? I'm not gonna like busy like decorate myself in decorating my hotel room, because it's just, I'm not saying don't decorate, by the way. I'm just saying that, just think about this. So what should we attach our hearts to? Obviously, it should be to that which is baqi, as the Quran says. مَا عِنْدَكُمْ يَنْفَدُ وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ بَاقٍ. What is with Allah is baqi. It's that which stays, that which remains, which is Allah Ta'ala. If we go to one of the great examples of this is the story of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. Nabi Musa was in a very dire predicament. He had grown up in the lap of luxury. He had grown up and he had people caring for him. He had servants. He had a palace, everything. But because he challenged the status quo and he challenged Pharaoh, right, he found himself having to like at odds with Pharaoh, and eventually, after this incident takes place, he has to leave his hometown. And without any preparation, without any provisions, he makes a journey towards Madian. And the Quran tells us this in Surah Al-Qasas. So when Musa alayhi salam arrives in Madian, now this is after a difficult journey. And when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in Nahj al-Balagha, he describes Nabi Musa, the first thing he talks about is this situation of Nabi Musa, like right here, what I'm talking about. He says that if you wish, I will give you a second, this is from Nahj al-Balagha, I will give you a second example of Musa, he to whom God spoke. Musa beseeched, Musa made this prayer My Lord, I am in dire need of whatever you may bestow. By God, Musa asked Allah for nothing more than a piece of bread, for he had only wild plants to eat. He was so thin, his flesh was so pared that the green of the plants he had eaten shone through the translucent skin of his stomach. This is the words of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So imagine, he hasn't eaten properly, hasn't had any shelter, right? He's being chased by enemies who want to kill him. He doesn't have any family. He has nothing. But he has Allah. So after he does this act of service, most people in that situation, last thing they want to do is service to other people. But he does the act of service, right? You see the two women who are in need of assistance. He goes and he challenges the men who are kind of acting like bullies. Says, get out of the way. I'm going to help them. And he helps them without any desire for any reward. Then he says what? Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. Oh my Lord, indeed I am really in need of whatever you may send down upon me. Right? It shows us that Nabi Musa alayhi salam, all the while, through all these adversities, there was something that was burning brightly in his heart. It was that flame of the love of Allah. Because he can easily turn to him. Right? In that situation, he doesn't despair. He doesn't, no. Right? Everything's been taken away from me, but what I still have is Allah. And then that same Nabi Musa alayhi salam, right? When he has that type of love of Allah, then Allah chooses him. Sometime later, he's again traveling in the desert. They lose their way, right? It's dark at night. And he says that, Inni anastu naran, I perceive a fire in the distance. He leaves his family there and he goes searching and seeing what the fire is about. And when he gets there, it's, فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا نُودِيَ يَا Musa. Right? Then Allah shows himself to him. O Musa, إِنِّي أَنَا رَبُّكَ فَخْلَعَنَ عَلَيْكَ إِنَّكَ بِالْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوَى. I am your Lord and this is the sacred value. وَأَنَا أَخْتَرْتُكَ, I've chosen you. فَاسْتَمِعْ لِمَا يُوحَى. I've chosen you. And these stories are in the Quran not just to tell us, oh, historically there was a person named Musa and this is what happened to him. Right? These stories are to encourage us, take the path of Musa. What did Musa tie his heart to? Right? When things were taken away from him, did he despair? Or did his love for Allah become more intense? And how did Allah respond to that act of Musa? Later on in his life, when he's being pursued by Pharaoh and the troops, right? Other people around him are like, they're beside themselves. They don't know what to do. They're like, we're caught. In front of us is the body of water. On our backs is the army of the Pharaoh who, they're vastly superior to us in terms of their numbers, in terms of their weapons. We're dead, right? And he says that no. Inna ma'aya rabbi sayahdeen. Like, indeed with me is my Lord and he will definitely guide me. Right? So this is, again, an example of somebody who understood this, that you can attach yourself to things which are fani, those things which are transient, or you can attach yourself to that which is permanent. Now, last thing I'll mention is this, that what's permanent is Allah and the people of Allah. Right? And this can be proven through the Quran that those who are given that special type of life are those who actually fall into this category of those who will never be destroyed. So that's why we're told that on the Day of Judgment, it's a very beautiful hadith. It's one of the very touching hadiths. It's found in the book Kamil al-Ziyarat, which is one of the authentic books of hadith. Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that for the people who visit Imam Hussein alayhi salam, on the Day of Judgment, they will be given a chance to be in the company of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And for some of them, that opportunity to be in the company of Imam Hussein alayhi salam will be so pleasurable and it will be so fulfilling and so rewarding that when they will be told by the angels that, okay, now it's time for you to go into your homes in heaven. They've been prepared for you. The people who are there to be your companions, they're waiting for you. They're longing for your company. They've been told of your imminent arrival. Now go, right? They'll be like, no, we still need some time with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And then eventually, this is in the hadith, that the companions who have been appointed for them in those homes in heaven, they'll come out and they'll come to those people and they say that we're the ones who are waiting for you. It's time now that you left and you went into and stayed in those, and came to your dwellings in heaven. They won't even lift their faces away from Imam Hussein alayhi salam to pay attention to those who are calling them because of the love that they have for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the hereafter is the manifestation of the beauty and the grandeur of Allah Ta'ala. Right? That's what we believe, like for the great ones, because there was no self in them. That self was burnt a long time ago. They were just a manifestation of Allah's mercy. So this is an example of those who are in heaven are those who have love for the everlasting, and they don't busy themselves with that type of love for the transient. May Allah Ta'ala help us to achieve this great blessing of having His love fill our hearts. And may Allah Ta'ala help us to achieve the most out of whatever remains of this great month of Shahr Ramadan. May Allah Ta'ala help those who are oppressed, especially those who are suffering right now in Syria, in Palestine, in Yemen, and in other places. May Allah Ta'ala hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time with the barakah wa salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على رسول الله على رسول الله وآله. اللهم صل على رسول الله على رسول الله وآله. اللهم صل على رسول الله على رسول الله وآله. اللهم صل على رسول الله على رسول الله وآله.